Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Anthem video, and today I want to talk to you guys about some of the more interesting stuff that dropped at the end of the most recent Anthem live stream. Of course, they ran through some really awesome new content. If you guys haven't seen that, I will link the video down below. They ran through a brand new Stronghold, but at the end of that, they had a Q&A, and they did actually touch on quite a few interesting topics, so I thought I'd round all of that up and give you guys a quick summary in case you missed it. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions. Don't forget there is still a chance to enter the limited edition Nintendo Switch giveaway, the Super Smash Bros. One, if you guys want a chance to win that. And of course, if you want to pick up some of the Arekkz Gaming merch, you can grab that on the Endgame store too. Now, the very first thing I want to talk about is the notion of Stronghold specific loot, or more broadly speaking, is there loot that is tied to specific activities? Some games do this, whereby, you want to get a certain type of gear, you have to go and do a certain activity, and, there are merits to both sides. I personally quite like this system because it kind of encourages you to, target certain things, but I appreciate that to some people they prefer to just grind what they like and get whatever they want. Well, they did confirm that Stronghold specific loot is not a thing in Anthem. Instead, there are global loot tables, so essentially you can, to a certain degree, get anything from anywhere. The way you get better gear is simply by turning up the difficulty. So when you go into Stronghold, you can select your difficulty, and of course, if you crank it right at the top, then that's where you start getting the good stuff. So instead of, say, going into that specific Stronghold like the one they showed on the stream the other day and saying I have to do this to get this weapon, instead you just go into it and be like, alright, I'll crank up the difficulty and I hope that I'll get a masterwork drop that I want. So on one end, that of course means that you will be slightly more free to do whatever you want. I'm sure there are still going to be certain areas that'll be best for farming certain items, but ultimately you will have more freedom to essentially do the activities you want to get some good gear. It's not going to force you into something that perhaps you might not want to play. However, linking in with that, the tiers of difficulties, just kind of worth calling out. There are 6 tiers of difficulty in Anthem. The first 3 are available as you're playing through the game in what they call the crit path, basically playing through the story missions, and once you get to endgame, then you unlock the other 3 tiers of difficulties. The first 3 are of course easy, normal and hard. Then once you get to level 30 and you get to the end game, you unlock 3 additional tiers, which are Grandmaster 1, Grandmaster 2, and Grandmaster 3. Of course, as mentioned in the previous section, choosing the higher difficulties will yield better loot, so ultimately in endgame you will be kind of working towards that Grandmaster 3, running those activities on the hardest possible difficulty to get the best loot, or at least kind of get the best chance at getting some of the good loot. They also said, rather interestingly, that they can control the Grandmaster difficulty on their side, so, as and when people start playing it, if it ends up being too challenging or too easy, they can actually tweak that relatively easily, so that means that if they do want to start cranking things up, or perhaps they want to sort of like make something challenging for a particular event, then that is something they can do. Following on from there, the notion of combos. We've kind of seen this before. We've of course seen some of the combo text that happens when people are playing in a team, but they actually decided to delve a little bit deeper and explain how it works, because depending on the Javelin you're playing as, they actually work slightly different in the whole combo system. Fundamentally speaking, combos in Anthem work kind of how you would expect. When you work with your team and you basically do attacks together, you can essentially pull off combo attacks. One of the examples they used during the Stronghold was that the Storm was set up to freeze enemies, and then once it had actually applied the freeze debuff and they were frozen, if the other Javelins then went in and did attacks on them, that counts as a combo. But more interestingly is the way in which combos apply and work with the rest of your team. For example, they said that if a Storm combos with something else, then the inherent effect for that particular Javelin type is that the Storms will spread the effect wider. So essentially if you cast that on, say, a single target, and then like another Storm combos with you, then you can basically spread the effect amongst a group. Meanwhile, if the Colossus combos with something, then their inherent behavior is to create AoE explosions, and that kind of just triggers, and of course, that means you can hit a large number of targets. For the Interceptor, instead, they will inherit the aura of that particular combo. So say, for example, again, in the Storm example, if it froze something, then if the Interceptor got in there and comboed, it can then inherit that as an aura, which it can then run around and apply to other enemies, which is really cool. And then the Ranger one is just a huge crit damage spike, so essentially if it gets that, then it's good for doing big single target damage. So I do generally think that Rangers, despite the fact that they are kind of marketed as these sort of like jack of all trades and whatnot, and people tend to gravitate slightly more towards, Storm, Interceptor and Colossus, I can kind of feel like Rangers are probably going to be these really strong ones at the end of the game where people kind of want them just for those huge damage spikes. Anyway, moving on from there, the notion of medals or feats. When you're playing through challenging activities, missions, strongholds, other things, there are medals that you can earn by completing certain conditions or certain challenges, and then upon getting these medals, you get bonus XP. So the example they gave is, say you might play through a Stronghold, and it might say, during the Stronghold, get 5 combos, and in doing so, you get a combo medal, and then at the end of it, when you basically get to your reward screen, if you get a number of medals, you get bonus XP on top. They also said that there will be challenges tied to things outside of just combat, so you might have crafting challenges and crafting medals, which is really cool because it basically then means that if you want to kind of invest heavily into something like crafting, you can probably also level up at the same time, I would imagine, if that's kind of assuming they function in the same way. But on top of that, they also mentioned that there's a really cool aspect when you're playing in a group, because if you're in a group, the entire group shares medals. So say, for example, I'm playing as Colossus, and I tick off a medal, and then I'm in a team with the rest of my squad, they too will get that entire medal, which then means, since medals essentially link to XP, if your team gets lots of medals, you can essentially share the XP amongst your team, which is really cool. So it kind of does encourage squad play. Yes, of course, you can still play through the game solo, but for those that do want to run through activities and try and, work together, bear in mind things like Strongholds are match made, so you'll have to go in with a team. So for things like that, then of course it does mean you can get a greater benefit, especially XP. It might well be one of the fastest ways to level up is actually to play as a squad. Additionally, on top of that, they also mentioned that dedicated servers are a thing. I believe they mentioned this in passing once before. I think Mark Dara called this out, but they kind of reiterated that yes, they are a thing, and by doing this, it allows them to synchronize the day and night cycles and the weather for all players. So if, for example, you're out there and it's raining in your game, or it's dark, or it's nighttime, that's going to be the same for everybody, which is really cool. And it also means that when they do world events, they can then also synchronize that for everybody too. So yes, dedicated servers are a thing. And then finally, the question came up again about, are there raids? And while they are still pretty kind of cagey about that whole endgame topic and they don't really talk about it as such, they did say that there will be some content that is going to be present at launch. That will of course be your endgame content, be the stuff that you can kind of work towards, start getting your good gear, start kind of challenging you. And they also said they have a big post-launch plan as well. There will basically be an endgame present at launch, plus there'll be lots of stuff following. They plan to, continue to support the game, and that is part of their ongoing aspirational content. Raids are kind of like the sort of thing in games like this, where you basically aspire to do them because they are the most challenging. And while reading between the lines, it doesn't sound like they have raids in the conventional sense. It does sound like they have plans for content that falls within that sphere. So obviously they're not talking about that right now. They said there's lots of stuff they are working on that they can't talk about, so do stay tuned on that front. But for the time being, those are some of the points they spoke about during the Q&A. So there you have it. That's a roundup of some of the stuff they discussed at the end of the most recent live stream, some of the interesting points that you guys might have missed. So if you did enjoy this, again, let me know in the comments down below. Also, be sure to keep it locked because there will be plenty of awesome Anthem stuff coming your way very soon. And plus, we're not even that far away from launch and the demos, so it's going to get really cool very soon. For the time being, that's it. Hopefully you guys are having a great holiday, and I'll catch up with you guys soon. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you want to grab some sweet Arekkz Gaming merch, you can head over to the Endgame store right now. That's linked down below. And you can pick up either the Arekkz Gaming festive jumper or sweater. And yes, we might be past Christmas, but it's an awesome jumper. So if you want to grab one, they are super limited. There were only 100 of them made, but there are still a few left, so you can pick those up if you want. Plus, we have the limited Yeet pin from 269's live stream. If you want to grab that, the awesome mascot, you get that as a pin and a sticker. So both of those are available to purchase if you guys want to pick them up. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to stay tuned, don't forget to stay subscribed, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads, and you can check out some of the more recent videos linked right here.